I love speaking to rooms full of marketers, especially about the topic of AI, because there's a love-hate relationship here. But I'm very excited to share some thought leadership with you today and to share what we're seeing in the field. So again, my name is Sam Goebel, and I have been in the digital marketing space for 15, 16 years or so. Everywhere from, say, 12 years ago, a little bit before that, when everything was about personalization. We're still all about personalization, but now AI is very well in the picture. And I'm excited to share where it's going. Just a little bit about what Accentium is, because we have one of those names that doesn't really tell you much about who we are and what we do. We're a digital consultancy. So when you think about, websites, customer data platforms, social marketing, paid marketing, all those things that touch your digital presence, we build those things, we consult and strategize about those things, and we help develop the creative for those things. And we're a 14-year-old company, and we are located really largely across North America, but our global footprint has expanded as well. We've got an office in London, and we are just about to open one up in Australia. So again, that kind of gives you, a sense of all of what we do. And we do have a booth here if you have thoughts or questions that you want to talk about after this. Just a quick example of some of our financial services customers. You can see they range in size. And we have quite a bit. If you gave me a vertical, I could probably name you a client that I've worked with in that vertical, but financial services is really a cornerstone for us. All right, so really quickly, this is a typical question that I get at something like this, which is, okay, what are you seeing across the board? What's our point of view or our opinions? And what we're really seeing is that pretty much every customer we talk to is leveraging AI in some way, whether it's at the individual level to just ideate and draft content. We see it quite a bit on the IT side of things in terms of strengthening code development, speed to market with completion of components, etc. Agentic when it comes to customer service, both back end and front end. There's a ton of stuff here. I do like this next one. So GEO and SEO. How many of you in here have had conversations internally going beyond SEO and talking about how your digital properties show up in AI search? Great. That's a great number. It's much better than when you have one or two and like, you should be talking about it. But this has become table stakes really quickly. A year ago, I wasn't talking about that at all. And so just the speed at which AI is moving is causing all of us to have to shift really quickly. How many of y'all are doing one-to-one personalization for your customers on digital? Couple, yep. How many of you have started a roadmap toward a composable tech stack? How many of you know what I just said and what that means? Because you might be doing it already. So composable, it's a term primarily in the web space and digital that is all about having lightweight web solutions that simply allow you to connect via API, whatever systems or platforms that you have. So the opposite of composable is monolithic. So 6, 7, 8 years ago, most folks were buying, they would buy Adobe and they'd take everything that Adobe had. And that meant, great, you get all the bells and whistles of that Swiss Army knife, but maybe you're only using 2 things, right? So there's a value if you're using a lot of those tools. There's also a lot of potential waste if you're using those tools. And then to keep those things up to date can be really cumbersome, et cetera, et cetera. So composable fits right into everything here with AI and what I'm going to talk about today in terms of what else we can do with it besides the usual stuff that, frankly, we all probably know already. The latest is truly this next one, web redesigns in weeks. I'm not kidding. I've got several examples that I can walk you through where to take, a website from one platform to another is literally possible in weeks, including ramping up and training your marketing teams to use the new system. And I'll explain why in a little bit. And the good part about having web redesigns that can be done in weeks is that my guess is that the vast majority of people in here have a reduced budget, but an increased expectation in terms of what you're supposed to deliver with that budget. And then on top of all of that, when you go back to personalization, which, again, I've been talking about that for a million years, customers are no longer afraid of that personalized content. As a matter of fact, most of us expect it, and we think there's something wrong if we're not seeing it on your digital property. So back when I first started talking about this, like I said, 12, 14 years ago, it was all about be careful because nobody wants to feel like they've got somebody looking over their shoulder. Most of us know if we're on that phone or on that computer, we're being watched all the time. And we expect that to help serve our needs. All right. This I stole from one of our partners, but I love this slide because back in the day, we used to talk about digital maturity in terms of how you were managing your content and how you were using that to personalize to your customers. Now we've got this whole other thing in the room that's all about how are you using AI? And I suspect that most of us are probably in that active or operational space, right? So awareness would be, hey, you've heard of it before organizationally, but nobody's allowed to use it yet. And as far as you know, nobody is using it when it comes to creating work product. Active means, you have people that are maybe creating draft content or doing some things with AI, but it's not yet ingrained in your tooling and in your operations. Operational, though, is when we start to really, the rubber starts to hit the road where we're using it on a team basis. And I suspect that most people are in this operational level where your developers are using it in one way. Your marketers are using it in another. Your designers and creatives are using it in another. And so what we have now is a new set of silos, which is all great and productive. But what I'm going to suggest here today is there's a lot more that we can do with that organizationally. It can be a little scary, but it's also exciting and inspiring, I think, too. And what we can ultimately get to is this transformational stage where AI is not replacing our people. I look at it sort of as like, okay, this is our new assembly line idea. Right? So pre-industrial revolution, et cetera, everybody's working, maybe they get a half a day off on Sunday, but you're working around the clock to make a living. This is a huge shift. And it's my view that rather than reducing our team, that human element of what we can get from our folks' creative brains, this is an opportunity to actually get that. But it's going to require some change management and some different ways of thinking about how we work. All right, so let's get the, again, I'm talking unicorns and rainbows. Let's get this back to reality here. So the need overall, we're always needing to digitally modernize our stuff, our brand, right? This is not hey, we're going to do a redesign and now we're going to look at it in 3 or 4 more years. We need to be constantly looking at it. That customer experience is always going to be front and center, and that's going to continue shifting as well in terms of how your customers interact, what they expect, et cetera. And I mentioned this change management piece because I've been to so many tech conferences where we talk about the code and we talk about the tools and we talk about all this potential, but nobody's really digging in and saying, okay, but what does this mean to your actual people who have to use these things? You're going to have some fear, right? So people are going to start to wonder, okay, well, if this machine thing can do my job, what does that do for me? We've got the additional need to produce more. There's the risk, there's compliance concerns, there's all kinds of stuff that is kind of behind the scenes on when we talk about leveraging AI in our tools. So this whole change management conversation and making sure that leadership has a plan for how they're going to use AI in collaboration with that human value that you have in your people. So how we're going to do this, this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give you an example coming up. You obviously need best in breed tech. That can mean a lot of things. There's a lot of platforms that we partner with. There's a lot that we don't that also offer some really good composable technology that will allow you to adopt quickly, add on the pieces that you need quickly. So it's going to reduce risk because you're not, you don't have some giant spend and you're rolling things out and getting value much faster. So I talked about the composable piece, and also we're going to leverage AI throughout. Now, that's all going to differ from organization to organization, right? But I really want customers to start thinking about what's our approach to AI as a whole, not as a way to like say, okay, we've got to have this top-down model and now nobody can do anything while we're waiting for the folks up here to figure it out. But it's more of a, how are we approaching it, right? What is it that we're trying to get? Aside from just, hey, we want to, scale and churn out more content and we want to do stuff faster. All right, this is a core value at Exentium. Building websites should be easy. It is 2025. If I ever hear of somebody else coming to me saying, well, yeah, we're replatforming and it's going to take 18 months before we see anything, guys, run for the door if somebody's telling you that. That is not how that should be going, unless it's your team can't deal with it until month 16, right? Managing those websites should be even easier than building them. Now, there's plenty of, you've got the WordPresses of the world, et cetera, that make things really easy. They're not really delivering the value of having, like the sort of the ability to hook into other things really easily. It can be done. It can be done with just about any system. But it's our belief that whatever we're building for customers, now and in the future, needs to make their lives a lot easier. And you really shouldn't have a lot of dependence on a development partner if you don't want to post go live. So what did this do for how we work as a company? The way we've approached this is that for any platform that we work with, we build accelerators onto it. It's a term that gets thrown around a ton, but for us, it means that we are creating out-of-the-box usability on any of these composable platforms. And this does a couple of things. One, it's going to save a whole bunch of time in terms of building stuff and rolling it out. Can I see a show of hands of folks who have gone through a website replatform in the last, say, 2 years? Okay, couple. Generally speaking, on those projects, how long did it take on those before content authors could actually go in and start playing with the system and creating content? Nope. Got to have content pre-go live. So during the project, all right, here's the reason I'm asking. It used to be that, okay, you're building a project and the marketing team is all excited at the beginning, right? That's where you've got momentum. There's this new thing, it's going to make their lives easier. And the project, say, is going to take 9 months to a year, and the marketers typically don't get their hands on it until, if you're lucky, month 7. Where's the excitement? And now guess what? Marketing is going, you want us to get all this content done and approved by when? You guys, so again, it's a typical pain point, both with composable tech. So this isn't just an Exentium thing. This is also a composable tech thing, right? That offers this speed to market. But then we also were looking, okay, what is it that we usually build? Okay, well, we're always building, navigation, header, footer. We're building all kinds of articles. We're potentially building out, an FAQ section. There's a hero carousel. Like, we're doing the same stuff over and over and over again. And the only thing that's different is the styling of it, right? Where do you want your buttons? How are they supposed to look? There's a lot of content that's like that. So what we bake into these platforms is all that stuff is ready to go. So then we're spending time on what are the unique things that we need to do? What are like your wish list integrations that, man, I really wish we had a tool that was custom built for us that did X, Y, Z. And that's where the developer's time goes. But the other thing that happens is between having the composable platform and having a bunch of these components ready to go, this means that at the latest, by week 2 of the start of the project, marketers can be hands-on in that solution, building content, learning it, iterating on that content, and they actually have the time so adoption goes really smoothly. And they're no longer in the situation where, great, we're live, but yeah, we're not sure how this thing works and we're afraid to touch anything. And and then you're having to get over this hurdle of months and months of the team not feeling quite right about what they're using. You can see with this, though, I talked about the general stuff. We've also built out accelerators on actually on all the composable platforms that we have that are geared towards financial services. You guys have needs that go beyond just, okay, yeah, I've got some, content that goes and, I need a picture and I need a CTA button, blah, blah, blah. You guys need calculators. You guys need charts. You guys need unique search, right? There's all this additional stuff that we have built out. And if you come by the booth, I can actually show, we've got a demo site and I can show you what that looks like. So this is the first piece of, again, this was all about, how do you leverage creativity, et cetera. The first part is you got to give creativity time. Speaking to marketers, you guys get this. If I was in a more tech group, they look at me and be like, we don't have time. We need time, right? Ideas don't happen when you say to a group of people, I need your best in 5 minutes. You're not going to get it. It's the ideating, it's the conversation with the other people in the room to actually drive that. So I talked about this access in 2 weeks. This is what the demo site looks like. But we can actually take this tool, and if you give me 2 days, I can go to your site, grab your styling and some of your content, and show you how your stuff looks in here. And again, it's getting the boring stuff out of the way. Again, 14 years ago, it will be exciting to build a new website. Now, been there, done that. We just need to check that box off so we can get to the good stuff. Again, out of the box, very specific things. So we've got, these financial calculators capture data that can be within the solution. It can also connect via API to grab that from, whatever systems are driving this information. There's something else I was going to say about it. I'm forgetting, so I'll come back to it if I remember. But even things like, building out, fun data, and this is live. This is going to be live, right? So live updates to this stuff. I did not pull an image of the charts, but we also have charting built in to reports and things like that. So there's a ton of good stuff in there. And it's also a system where if you say, hey, we don't need or want all that, no big deal. You don't have to use it. But that should help you kind of understand how quickly this stuff can move so that then you're really spending time on, the brand content, etc. Now, that was just the boring, okay, that's what you use to drive a website. And if you're like me, you go, I don't really give a crap. The stuff that's really going to drive value for me is not directly on the website. It's going to tie into my campaigns. It's going to tie into, any paid media that I've got going on. It's going to tie into other things. So I care more about campaign performance. Even if you have a really well tied together marketing team, they're working well across the business, it's still pretty typical to have, somebody in the C-suite ask you a very specific question about some piece of data, and there's maybe a couple people you got to go to, right? You're still going to have those silos and you're still going to have those potential friction points. Imagine a world in which you've got a dashboard and a marketing leader can press a button in that dashboard to create a campaign. Okay, that's nice. It's going to create a campaign and then I'm going to have to, send out a list and blah, blah, blah. But what if by pressing that button to create the campaign, it also then sends out the templates in each of the different systems that needs content for that campaign? It's going to connect to HubSpot to create your form. It's going to connect to your CMS to create a landing page. It's going to connect to your social to draft that content. So with that one press of a button, you're sending all that stuff out and assigning it to the right people to create that stuff. I don't know about you, but my personal irritation is, great, we're going to do a campaign, and the amount of time that we have to spend shepherding stuff through and the redundant communication, etc. You have to do it, but it would be pretty darn cool to have a dashboard that does it. There are a couple of solutions that we work with that have this today. It is backed by AI so that you can have your own brand voice. When I say, hey, create a landing page for this event that we have going on, I've already got a ton of approved content for event pages. I shouldn't have to have somebody rewrite it, and it shouldn't be exactly the same as everything else either. So you can use AI with your own very specific brand voice to generate this content. And I've got some examples. I don't think our video got to this on the actual pages. It's a really short video. But again, we've got all of this stuff set up. This is actually using Optimizely. But it's really easy to use. And then on top of it, all of those agents can be specifically customized for your team. So what we're looking at here is potential, yes, there's speed to market and getting those campaigns out, but there's also this better visibility. And also if you're giving your team, hey, we've already got this seeded with stuff, then what is it that you need them to do? Well, if you're looking at AI from a sort of immature perspective, you're going to go, okay, great, good enough, check, move it out. And the more good enough checkboxes we put by our content, the more our content is going to look the same as everything else. However, if you're going to say, okay, I'm still going to give my marketers time, right? We can get stuff out faster, but I want those marketers to sit in a room and think about that content. Is this really on brand? What could we do that's different? What else is working and what other ideas are out there that we can consider to bring in to add more value and to really think, right? So the thing that's exciting about AI in cases like these is if operationally we can give them time, and we should be able to, because even if you have somebody in the C-suite going, this was going to save me time, you can still give that leader time savings and also have some of that additional time to help to let your creatives stretch those thought muscles a little bit. So really quickly, I can share you guys a link to this video, but this is seriously a matter of we were able to do this in I think under 5 minutes, and that's an actual page created and ready for publish on the website. That I didn't scroll down farther, but it's got a HubSpot form in it already. And then what you can end up doing with that solution after that is, as that campaign is running, this is the part that, again, that creating the campaign is one thing. The part that made me really excited about this was, okay, now that it's running, now what can we do? We can use that same dashboard to say, how's my campaign doing? What channel's converting the most? Now, granted, you're going to have that data in other places, and you might have that in a Power BI dashboard, but it's going to give you exactly what you put in there, right? It's not necessarily going to be as flexible to answer the random question that my CEO will usually decide to ask. So anyway, it's pretty cool stuff. I liked this image too, because yes, we've got a lot of great technical underpinnings to all this stuff. But if we're thinking about it as using AI as our tool, as our thought partner, right? Not the engine that's going to give us something that does a checkbox good enough, but that's going to get us some time to look at what that good enough is and to see what our people can come up with. I think that's where the magic shows up. Ooh. Give you time to grab contact info. That was a whole lot of me on my soapbox. I'd love to hear questions.
Questions? Any questions, guys?
If they're like me, they're like, yeah, I'll ask her by myself later.
Somebody here.
We do have one.
Back.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you very much. This topic is really helpful, and I feel like, as someone who works at an ad agency and does websites and things of that nature for our clients, there's a lot of stuff on the back end that we don't always think about. And like you said, it can be fragmented from someone that's doing IA or development or who's doing attribution or who's doing metrics and things of that nature. So I would feel comfortable recommending you to a client first. Second, what is the percentage of people that you work with or brands that come in and say, I don't know where to start, versus we've got something in place, but it's not connected?
I would say, and Tom is with us as well. Tom, you may have a different perspective than I do. My perspective is, at this point in time, I would say at least 75% of orgs that we work with or start to work with are already using AI in some way. Very, very few of them, though, I would say less than 10%, are thinking about it as an overall organizational thought partner. Right? It's typically more what I've described, like, oh yeah, our dev team uses it to do code reviews and to standardize code, and they're using it for QA. And you have a marketing team who says, oh yeah, well, we use it to generate our blog content as first drafts and things like that. That's more the typical scenario. We do have a few that we do a lot of e-com as well. So we do have a lot that, use it for agentic, like those easy customer service on live chat. But it's very few are using it with this whole change management concept in mind. All right. Thank you. Happy to show you guys any of this stuff at our booth. We've got the live stuff over there. Thank you.